I have a second channel, Cube Comp MTDX. Hey everybody. So I'm assisting a friend of mine with getting some data off some of her older computers. Kind of a long story behind it. She used to be a programmer, but has fallen into not the greatest health. Like I say, it's a long story. But I got this computer in, and a couple of others. Well, a couple others. I'm going to be pulling files off of. This one here, I figured I'd take an opportunity to make a video about. This thing is a Compaq Evo D300S. So looking at this thing, it's a very early Pentium 4 system based off, I believe, socket 423. So for those who don't know, Intel's Pentium 4 CPUs, at least the Willamette core processors, when they first came out, they were released on socket 423, which was a socket that was a bit similar to socket 370, at least in size. It preceded socket 478, which some people out there have mistaken as AMD CPUs. If you can see that right there. So anyways, this thing is probably, I want to say, around 2000, 2001. It came with, looks to be Windows 98 second edition on it. So yeah, it could have I think they offered these with Windows 2000 and Windows 98 SE. So definitely before Windows XP. Let's have a look inside this thing. At first glance, I thought this was based off of socket 370, but then I saw the Pentium 4 badge up front. It's like, oh, a socket 423. It uses PC133 SD RAM, so this actually predates DDR, or at least this model did not come with DDR. PC 2100, but instead came with PC133 SD RAM. Right here is the CPU cooler, and you can see it's not very big. It's about the size of a Pentium 3 or socket A Athlon for the AMD folks out there. It has this proprietary as all get out power supply. And there's quite an interesting story. I mean, I'll talk about that in a moment. But you look at this thing. This thing, I believe, predates the HP acquisition of Compaq. It was right around that time, and you can see all these fail capacitors on this thing. Yeah, lots of fail caps. Even the graphics card, I think this cap is starting to go up a little bit. I don't know for sure. Can't really tell. But this thing, yeah, it's been a while since I've gotten one this old in. So there's the Plexi. So back when I was in high school is when I built the Plexi, the original Plexi, and it had a socket 370 Pentium 3 base motherboard out of a Compaq Despro EN. And the paired 200 watt Compaq power supply, probably made by Lite-On. And these computers from this era, they were nearly they were built like tanks, with the exception of the bad caps, but they were built like tanks and seemed to last forever. But they were so proprietary. I mean, And if you look at newer HP computers, especially the business class ones, you'll see some similar stuff in here. Like, for example, the big power supply would be branded HP. And you had these Torx bit screws everywhere. Instead of your typical Phillips head screws, you'd had the Torx bits all inside this thing. And I used to and since Compaq back then was, at least for their business class computers, they were building them their own special way. I used to call these Compaq Express screws. I don't know why I call them Express, but I used to call them Compaq Express screws. Let's just call it that. Yeah. So yeah, this thing, the power supply. So back to my story here. So the original Plexi, it came home with a Compaq Despro EM motherboard and power supply. And back in, what was it? Late 2006. I was going to do some upgrades to the Plexi. I wanted to add some more stuff to it, and I was like, okay, let's go ahead and swap out the power supply for a new one that has some SATA connectors. Because guess what? Back in 2006 for Christmas, I got a 160 gigabyte SATA hard drive. So how was I going to interface that with the old Pentium 3? Well, I used a PCI SATA link card, which worked really well. But the hard drive itself actually did have a 4-pin Molex, but I did actually go ahead and get a power supply. It was a Coolmax V400, 400 watt power supply. Well, it wouldn't actually do 400 watts because it was a piece of crap, but let's call it the Coolmax V400. It was built to your standard ATX specification. Plugged it into the Compaq Despro EM motherboard using a 24-pin connector. Yes, 24-pin connector. And as soon as I hit the power on the power supply, bam, pop, motherboard smoked. That's because Compaq back then, and this system does have this as well. Compaq back in the day, they used a proprietary design with their power supply that utilized a 24-pin power supply connector. Yes, in the year 2000, a 24-pin power supply connector. But it was not the same pinout as your typical 24-pin ATX connector as of today. There were certain wires on that connector that I believe were used to control the fan speed in the power supply. I don't know for sure, but I burnt up like 2 motherboards once I figured that out. I mean, mind you, I was 15 years old at the time, and I was really, really new to computers at the time. But in the process, I learned, with the help of my late friend Timmy, I learned that the reason why the motherboards went up in smoke was because Compaq used a proprietary design. Well, the computer engineering teacher, Michael Healy, which you may see an image of him on the back of the Plexi. He thought I wasn't really know what I was talking about in regards to that. Because that year I was in the Computer Engineering 2 course at Hopo High School, where we were learning about operating systems and software. And he gave me a C for that quarter, because he thought that I was. He based that off of the fact that I burnt up 2 motherboards. Well, truth be told, it finally dawned on him that no, it wasn't my sheer incompetence. Well, yeah, it was in a way. I didn't, but the thing was, it was design of the motherboard itself. Using a standard 24-pin ATX power connector, but the pinout was wrong. The pinout that Compaq used was not the correct pinout according to the ATX spec. So when you plugged in an ATX 24-pin power supply into this motherboard, it would just go up in smoke. Not the power supply, but the motherboard. Power supply was fine. It lived on. And actually, it powered the Plexi after I upgraded the motherboard. And it also powered my parents' computer. Actually, it did power the Black Max for a little bit, I think. But it powered a few systems after that. But yeah, that semester, Michael Healy, he come to realize that I did know what I was talking about. And there was another another disagreement we had. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic here. I promise I will get back to this in a moment. But and that has to do with the PCI slot here. So the PCI slot, this old-fashioned PCI slot, depending on what side the mark is on, is what voltage, I believe what voltage this slot runs at. If it's at the, I think it's if the divider is on this side or this side, it runs on either 3.3 volts or 5 volts. Well, me and Mr. Healy had a disagreement about the PCI slot. Because I brought my Silicon Image SATA link card in for some reason, and he saw that there was two notches on the card. Let me go and find a PCI card, see if I can show you. Okay, guys, here's a perfect example. So here we have a Silicon Image SATA link card. This is not the same one I had back in 2006 and 2007. This is actually a SATA RAID card. Mine was just one that offered an extra IDE port as well as a SATA port. That way you could give an old motherboard SATA functionality just for one hard drive. But if you look at this PCI slot, you'll see how there's notches. There's 2 notches on this one. If you look at the slot on this motherboard here, you see there's a notch toward the right. That means this PCI slot runs on 5 volts. I had to look. I did actually pull up this web page here because it's been a while since I actually had really dealt with this. But look at the old-fashioned PCI slot. You see this? This means it is a 5 volt 32-bit slot. Now, if the notch is on the left side over here, it means it's a 3.3 volt 32-bit slot. And if it's a lot wider, that means it'll be a 64-bit slot. But anyways, so if you look at this card here, you see how there's 2 notches. That means this PCI card can run in either a 3.3 volt slot or a 5 volt slot. It doesn't care. It's universal. So if you look here on this web page, it specifies that. Whereas the one above only has 1 notch and is only compatible with the 5 volt slot. So here we have this Sound Blaster Live sound card. It's probably from maybe 2000 or 2001, if I were to guess. You can see it only has only 1 notch, and it's on the right side. That means it would only work in a PCI slot that's a 5 volt slot. So at first, Mr. Healy, he disagreed and said I was wrong. But when I pulled up this as reference, he forever his opinion on my knowledge of computers and whatever at the time totally changed, totally different. So much as to where after the Computer Engineering 2 class, there was 2 programming classes. More or less, he allowed me to enroll in the programming class and just give me credit for programming, which was just like Visual Basic programming. But instead of me actually doing programming, I was actually in the back of the class, the room 529. I was in the back, setting up and helping him with stuff for his class, for his computer engineering classes. I was like his lab assistant. When I saw this, it made me think exactly of that. The motherboard debate and the PCI slot debate that I had with Michael Healy back in late 2006 and early 2007. So anyways, back onto this system. I'm sorry guys, I had to get that out of the way. So this thing, it also has that 24-pin power supply. And this system was built way back before 24-pin was really much of a thing. Maybe it was in servers at the time, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty certain that this one has practically the same type of thing. And what makes it even worse is the fact that they color code these wires differently than your standard color codes. Like, for example, if you look at this connector here, this orange wire is actually 12 volts. Normally that would be a yellow wire. Normally 12 volts is yellow, and 3.3 volts is orange. But that's simply not the case in this computer. So, I mean, looking at this thing, it brings back good memories and also bad memories. But I think I might do a separate part on this video where I might tear it apart. I don't know for sure. Maybe I'll pull the heatsink off, that way you guys can see what a socket 423 Pentium 4 looks like. And like I say, it looks a lot like a Pentium 3, except with a heat spreader on top. Now, there were some Pentium 3s, some late Pentium 3s that did include a heat spreader in it. I think it was the Telatin core. But, so I guess to wrap this up, we're gonna plug this thing in and try to start it. The friend, she says that the data supposedly is on the D drive, and I don't know which one of these drives this computer considers the D drive. So another thing I wonder is if this still has Windows 98 on it. So we're gonna plug it up and let's see if it runs. Okay guys, so it does run, but I had to shut it down because it was not detecting the keyboard and mouse on my setup here. So I hooked up a PS2 keyboard and mouse to this thing, and we're going to see what happens now. The CMOS battery does seem to be okay. It didn't complain about date and time upon startup, but we'll know for sure once we get in, if we get in. They do have a password listed on this thing, and it does appear to be password protected, so we're going to try to get in. Now, if there's personal information on the desktop, I won't be able to show the desktop. So, let's see here. Let's go ahead and give this another try. Have a listen to this thing. And I'm going to be quiet while this thing starts up and boots into Windows. Just get a chance to listen to the beautiful sound of this old machine. Okay, guys, I had to open up something to fill up the whole screen because there were some stuff on the desktop I didn't want to have on video here. Just personal files. I didn't want to share them. Look at this right here. Windows XP and support is on April 8, 2014. It's like, oh man, back in 2014, I was finishing up college, 6 years ago. But anyways, I think that wraps up for this old computer. I know this is kind of a random upload, but it's been a while since I've seen one like this. These old Compaqs and the later HPs. Now, the HPs, I don't think they were nearly as proprietary, but there was these old Compaqs from around 2000 and 2001. They were so proprietary in their design, but they were like tanks. They just went on forever. They ran forever. I mean, look at this one. It's still going. It's still going just fine. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Well, everybody, that's it for this video, but don't forget there's a lot more interesting stuff on the channel to check out. Also, if this is your first time visiting this channel, feel free to subscribe to keep your channel, and also don't forget to tick the bell so that way you'll get notified of new video posts. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, but if you really didn't like it, there is the alternative option available as well. Also, feel free to check out my second channel, Compaq MTDX. There you'll find videos about bicycling, weather, elevator tours, and all sorts of other neat, interesting stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to come back, and thank you for your support.